Hold your horses. Got it. That's nice. I love Zoom. Okay, let me record this on my end. Got it. Okay, ladies, we are live, everybody. So far, so good. As you can see, I'm in my dining room. So from now on, all of our podcasts and webinars have to be in the main house because the internet's so good here. Oh, it stinks though. Okay. All right, well, let's welcome our guest today. Welcome back to Everything Horses and More. You all know who I am, Caroline Best, your host and founder of Horsemanship, the Mastery Membership Program, and Everything Horses and More video library and podcast. And you know who my lovely co-host is, Sabrina Arbogast. And we have two great guests today. One of them is a Mastery Membership student, Jamie Hawkins. Say hi, Jamie.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, welcome. And your barn manager, Geena?
Yes. Hi, guys.
Yes. Hi, Geena. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited about this topic. Just know that there will be a delay, and I'll try and do my best to not talk over you guys. Because God knows I can ramble. We all know that. But today's topic is how your horse's environment affects their well-being. And we are specifically going to be narrowing down the environment to a healthy facility creates healthy horses. And I'd like to introduce Jamie and let her, I've already introduced you, but let you talk a little bit about, you're new to horses, and we met almost 2 years ago. I think it'll be 2 years in January.
Wow.
And then I came out to your facility or your place where your horse was in California. Mm-hmm. We have that in March, right before COVID hit in 2019. Yeah. I was flying back when they were shutting down the airports. Mm-hmm. And so go ahead and tell everyone who you are, what you're doing, how did this all come about where you are right now? Because you are operating two facilities. One's personal for your personal horses, but then the facility that I came to 2 years ago, where you were boarding the one horse, you took over.
Yes.
So tell us your journey. Tell us your journey.
Well, it all started with, obviously, I got my first horse, CJ, my mare that you met when you came out to the facility in Davis.
Yes.
And, it was a real struggle with not only getting the horse, but finding an environment where I could keep her, where she was happy and healthy. And I have a unique experience because I boarded at this facility before I took over, and I got to see the difference in the then and the now. And so when you were out there, we saw a lot of behaviors with these horses that were not healthy, a lot of displaced behaviors. I struggled with that and how it affected my relationship with my mare. And I knew, based off of everything I had learned from you and the program, how detrimental that can be to our progress. And so I made the decision to move her to a private facility. And the opportunity arose where the facility that I actually run, that you visited, the land is leased, but the actual operations in the facility was owned by a gentleman who knew nothing about horses. He fell into it by accident because it was a friend of the family who owned the property.
That's right.
I slowly started taking over the operations of one of the barns, and I started noticing a difference in the horses' behaviors, and quickly realized that there was an opportunity there that no one was really thinking about to provide these horses with a much better, healthier environment. And so my situation is very unique because a lot of the horses that are currently with us today were there prior. And so we have a chance, again, to see kind of the before and after, and how the things that Geena and I have implemented have really changed and molded these horses' behavior in a very healthy, positive way. And we can talk about that. In fact, when I took the facility over, you and I had a conversation, and you consulted me on some things that we have implemented. And I left the facility with my mare and got the private facility. And then when I left, a lot of the horses left. And when this transition was happening, I think the facility can board up to 42 horses, and it was down to 9. And when we took over, Geena and I a lot of the horses that left came back to us. And so we've had the ability to start from scratch, which was at the time was very stressful, but was really a blessing in disguise, because we were able to implement and create very strong foundation so that as new horses came in, we were able to slowly transition into this new way with them.
Yep.
So yeah, I operate the one facility in Davis, which is the old Davis stables, and we currently have 41 horses. And then I have the private facility, which is a 5-acre facility that I just have the 4. So,
yeah.
but
Beautiful.
It was really, to be honest with you, it was when I left and there was this transition between the old facility that I was at before I took over and other facilities that I had been to and looked at, that I really started to see some of the opportunities and just how much was missing in just their overall care. The basic needs were met: food, shelter, and water, but nothing beyond that. So we really wanted to make a difference there.
So yes. And if I'm correct, the biggest difference, you guys, is the level. There's a couple of them, but there's a consistency that you bring. You know, you are totally hands-on.
Yes.
And, you know, and Geena works for you, and she's structured, like she knows that things have to be done a certain way. And it's not just that you're consistent, but it's also the intention. There's that energy that you bring, the conscious level, you know, that you bring to it, where the horses know. And this is something that we talk a lot about in the program and dive into. The horses know that you care about them, and that you recognize when you see patterns of displaced behaviors. You recognize it. And that's some of the coaching that we had, you know, as you were creating this facility and thinking about taking it over. Caroline, what works? You know, how do you have healthy herds when, you know, they don't get to pick and choose who they want to be with? They have to be with each other. And these horses aren't in training with you. No. So it's not like you're excuse me, you're changing behaviors through training. That's so amazing, is you're just getting these horses, you know, safety is so important to horses and feeling comfortable. And people fail to realize that routine, just like it does for us, rituals and routine provide feelings of safety. And it's the feelings of feeling safe for horses that is so important, you guys. And this isn't about training. It's similar. You know, horses still need to feel safe when they're learning with you, but you're able to give them, you know, and there's a big argument out there. Oh, you should not, you know, feed your horse the same time every day, or they're going to be looking for it, and that creates bad behaviors. Yes, it can. But that's where you are in the program, and we've consulted, and the program shows you how to change those behaviors. You know, no, you can't be banging on the door when it's food time. No, you can't be aggressive. You know, no, you can't do these things. So you're offering also a level of leadership in the way that you're running this facility. You're not just providing them with their needs. You are consciously, you have a structured roadmap. You know, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what we're going to pay attention to. And, you know, when a horse acts this way, they're expressing something, they need something. What do we need to do for them? One of the most profound things you told me when we were talking about this before we decided to do a podcast. I mean, everything is just amazing, what you've done. But I remember being there, you know, 2 years ago, and, you know, I saw everything and my heart just broke. Yes. You know, the place was deplorable. You came in there because you have, you know, you are a manager by trade. So your management organization skills and communication skills as a leader are top notch. And a lot of people struggle with leadership and knowing how to be assertive and clear, and you don't. And so it's excellent. And you had respect right from the get-go from the people at the barn before you took over. And that's why they came back, because you were already implementing and making changes before you ever started leasing the place. And, but yeah, being there, I mean, the horses were all anxious, you know, you could barely lead some of them out. they didn't all get along. And so when horses don't get along because they've got displaced anxieties, because they're worried about food, I've got to be the first one to be led back into my stall. Food's such a priority. None of these horses were being fed well or being fed often. And I want to make that a number one priority when you're boarding your horse. That's a number one thing that's going to make your horse go nuts, is if they can't get the food that they need. And I know that we can't, in a lot of boarding facilities, a lot of horses are stalled most of the time, or they're turned out in small dry lots. They don't have a lot of pasture. I realize all of that, but there's no excuse for not providing a horse with, forage, with fiber, with hay, maybe not 24/7, but they shouldn't go more than 6 hours a night. People ask me that too. I'm not getting up at 2 a.m. to hay my horse, Caroline. Well, then give them 2 slow feeder hay nets, separate them in the stall, and give them a lesser quality hay like Coastal down here, or Bermuda in Florida. And in Tipton, they're all the 3 lower quality hays here in Florida, so that they're not going to devour it immediately, right? They'll devour alfalfa or Timothy or orchard. Give them something that they're going to take longer to eat, and it keeps working on their digestive. So a lot of these displaced anxieties are real to the horse, right? Because they're like, crap, man, I'm hungry, and then they get anxious, they get ulcers, their guts get upset, they colic. So that was one of the things that you were able to, plus you're feeding them organically, you're on the program, Dr. Tucker's program. Am I correct? You're doing the pellets?
No, we as a facility, we offer orchard and alfalfa, and all of our food is tested for nutritional value and posted in the barn.
Yep, that's right.
Our horses are fed 3 times a day, and they're let out to pasture. Every horse is out to pasture 6 days a week for 5 hours a day. And they're established groups, and they go out to the same pasture with the same groups at the same time. And so we can go more into that later, but the feeding is what we find is the most critical part of this component. As you said, we have seen what these horses were like. They were fed, prior to me, they were fed a 3-way, which we call cereal hay, of barley, wheat, and oat. And I had that tested because I was curious what it was. And it's all complex carbohydrates. It's 22% sugar, 7% protein, nothing to it. It's like feeding your horse sugared cereal every day and expecting them to perform with this food. And it just does a horrible job with their muscling, their top lines, everything, their hooves, their coats. They're constantly hungry. They process through it so fast. And so then they get these big hay bellies. And so then the owners, feed them less, they're getting chunky. And so then they're more hungry and more starved. And then it creates
anxiety. This creates tremendous anxiety and ulcers. Horses get ulcers like that. Yes.
So the quality of the food was one of the first things that Geena and I addressed. So high quality orchard with, we try to keep our sugar content below 14%. We try to keep our proteins and our alfalfas at 21 to 22%. Our orchard grass is about 19. And we feed them 3 times a day. And one of the beautiful things about what we do is that we feed each horse. This is important. We don't feed them based on flakes. We feed it based on the horse's size, their workload, and how much they weigh. And so we try to feed off of pounds. And so we have a food chart that goes in our food cart, and it has every horse with what they're supposed to be given. And we consult each horse owner. Oh, how big is your horse? What do you do with your horse? And we feed in increments of flakes to half flakes, and we allow adjustments on a daily basis. So that if that horse's workload has increased, or if their owner is starting to see something, or we see something, the owner goes to the food cart, writes on our laminated little form, and then we follow that daily. There is none of this, this is all we feed, this is all your horse gets, it's one size fits all. We adjust each meal to each horse. That's that simple. And it's not hard to do. And so
that's what we do here too.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And most facilities should allow, and this is what people should understand, most facilities should care about this, and they should allow for this.
Yes.
You don't feed them the same all the time. And so we're constantly looking at that list And it's the least we can do. Make sure they're fed appropriately. And just
Yes.
that alone has eliminated a lot of the behaviors that you see with these horses at feeding time, and the kicking and the aggression.
Yes.
And then on top of the 3 times a day feeding, so our structure is at 7 a.m. all horses are fed. And then after they're done with their breakfast, the morning group goes out to pasture, and they go out to the same pastures with the same groups. And
Jamie's frozen. Hold on, guys. Okay, good. I didn't hear you. You froze, but sorry. I hope everybody else. Okay.
We're talking about the routine of just the feeding. And so
yes.
The morning groups, everyone gets fed, and then we turn out to pasture the morning groups. And then we try, when we put those morning groups, or when we establish our groups, we try to make sure that we put horses together that are in the same areas, because what we don't want is one horse left behind. So we try to make sure that not only are the horses getting along and are they in groups where they're happy, but we don't want, let's say we have 2 barns at our location, we don't want one whole barn emptied and then one horse is stuck there by themselves.
Yeah.
So we play around with how they go out. We're considerate of that stuff. And so once they're fed breakfast, they go out, and then when they come in, lunch is waiting for them. And then the afternoon group has already had their lunch, and then they go out in the evening, and then they come in for dinner, and then all horses are fed dinner.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it. Yeah, I think that's the key is the food that creates so much anxiety just naturally, because their systems are craving it. They know innately, right, that they need it instinctively. Yeah, and that was one of the things I mentioned before, and you and I spoke about when we were consulting, is I usually have 4 different quality or varieties of hay here myself. And however, my horses are all on the same, most of it, the same feed program, meaning we went to the Dr. Tucker's all alfalfa pellets soaked with soybean meal. However, we've got some insulin issues with some of my mare Sundance, Janine's mares. So now we're on Timothy pellets. And we've got to watch their hay because they can't have the alfalfa. But it's important.
I follow the program with my own personal horses. Unfortunately, when you are at a boarding facility with 40 different clients, and they all have an opinion on how their horse should be fed. Quite honestly, and Geena, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we have any horses that are on a lot of grains. We have
Wait, we're losing you. Make sure you guys speak into the microphone. Sorry.
Okay. We have a couple of horses that are older. We have a 35-year-old that cannot eat hay, so he's on a senior mix. And we made accommodations for him to go out to pasture all day long, because that's the only time he gets grass. And we have another horse that had 2 colic surgeries, who a large part of his intestine was removed and can no longer process grass hay. But other than that, most of our boarders stick with the orchard and alfalfa. And I don't believe we have a lot of supplemental graining.
No, we find that the quality of the hay is good enough where they don't need supplemental nutrition, and then the pasture grass is so good for them, and they all have shiny coats and beautiful muscling, and they all look really good.
I know
that's a great point too.
We can say whatever we want, but this is proof. Look at our horses.
We don't have to say anything.
They're all out there.
Yeah, no.
We have 4 pastures, and we have different varieties of grass in the pastures. We have one that's just Bermuda. We have one that is a Bermuda fescue, and then we have 2 that are a mix of clover, alfalfa, ornamental strawberry, some Kentucky rye. And so we kind of play around with the different grasses that we have based on certain horses. Meaning, if we have a horse that comes in and the owner's freaking out because that horse is prone to laminitis, our answer to that isn't, oh, well, then keep the horse stalled up. It's, oh, well, we'll put them out on the Bermuda pasture. And they have the option, like every other horse, to be out to pasture and to be able to socialize and get what is absolutely necessary. And that's the ability to go out in groups and to socialize, hang out with their friends. It's mental for them, big time. So
yes, it is mental. You are so correct.
We don't accept, oh, well, then that horse stays in. We find a way to introduce that horse out to pasture. And so that's why we create these different pastures with different grasses.
Okay, so one thing I think you might have to switch with Geena, because the way you're speaking into your mic, it's cutting in and out. And where Geena's loud and clear. There you go, guys.
Okay. All right.
So you're good. So two questions that I know everyone, and of course Sabrina's here for questions, you guys too. So don't be afraid to ask. So this might seem like high maintenance to everyone, and you know what? Get the fuck over it. It is high maintenance.
It is.
Okay. How do you feed your body? How do you feed your dogs? How do you feed your cats? How do you feed your children? I don't want to hear about it. I am so sick of that lame excuse that, oh my God, this is such high maintenance and I can't do this at my boarding facility. Listen, guys, if you all band together and went to the facility manager or owner and said, you know what, we're leaving. Either you work with us, and that's one of the things that Jamie has a structured plan that I'm sure you're going to further develop. And I'm not going to speak for you for consulting, but the point I'm making, you guys, is if we don't make these changes, and our horses are never going to get better. You can do so much training. It's like when my students join the mastery membership and they are having adverse, not reactions, but just so much trouble with their horse, it's because their environment sucks. You know, they've got negative energy there. They've got stressed out horses. And then there's the whole feed. The feeding and the socializing are two of the most important things horses need. Okay. And so and they can't do anything about it. And nobody else wants to do anything about it. So it's really challenging. I get that. But if we band together and we're educated, what are these barn owners going to do? They're going to lose their income if they don't make these changes. Now, I want to ask you guys two questions. What grain, when I say feed, that's what I mean. It's either hay, forage, or feed. So my feed is alfalfa or Timothy pellets. And then, like you said, you've got Legends 29 and his teeth are horrible. So I also have him on some senior feed blended in. I don't care right now. I'll do whatever I can to keep that weight on him, because he can pick the grass. He can't chew anything. He has a really hard time chewing back here. So what kind of grain and are you using? Do you have different grain for groups of horses, or is there one feed program as far as the grain?
There's one feed program for us, which we offer the orchard grass and the alfalfa. And we have
the hay.
Yes, and then the horse owners that have horses with special needs, like we have they feed a senior mix, and then Nicole feeds the alfalfa pellets, grass pellets, and she throws in some different types of seeds and stuff in it. And she has a special program, and she puts all of her food for us in bags and labels them, and then we put them in the bins and soak them for those horses.
Excellent.
So we will grain at no additional charge as long as everything's pre-measured, ready to go, and then we will feed it.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So you are using the pellets too then?
Yes.
Good.
My own personal horses, the pellets as well. But as far as just the overall facility with the 41 horses, what we offer, our base rate includes the orchard grass and the alfalfa. And then if a horse owner has a specific dietary need to their horse, we want to know what that need is and why. And then we actually go as far as to deduct from their board the grass hay, because then they're paying for their own.
That is excellent.
Nutrition. So, and then we will feed it to them at no additional charge, as long as it's, like I said, it's all pre-measured and ready to go for us.
This is excellent. You know, this plan works for both the horses and the people, because, you know, how many of my students are so anxious because nobody will work with them? You know, they have to buy, if they want the pellets, they've got to buy that. It's additional. They don't get a deduction, which I think is absolutely horrible. And all the anxiety that we all, when I used to board, you know, that we have worrying about our horses' care and the stress that they're under and not knowing why they're so stressed out. But it's the environment. So like 75% of, you know, our horses' stress and anxiety is because they're not able to form healthy social bonds with other horses. They're not out and about. They get bored so easily. Just turn them out in a pasture. They don't get, I mean, that's what they instinctively do in the wild, right? They travel for miles together as a group foraging and being together and banding together. And we've taken them completely out and shoved them in these prisons, these stalls, and then out with other horses that they don't belong with. So you're meeting those needs. You're meeting the socialization needs. You're meeting the being outdoors, getting sunlight. And plus you've gone out of your way, Jamie, to irrigate and pasture manage. And that's another big area that a lot of people, even people that have their own backyard horses, do not want to deal with because of the expense and just the level of education. You've got to be able to till, you've got to be able to fertilize it, you've got to lime it, you've got to keep horses off, you've got to manage. And you've gone out of your way to you've hit all these areas that are so important to the horses, especially the pasture management. I mean, you just went in and redid all of the pasture. I mean, I remember you're out there telling me, we were talking about watering it and this one's almost ready. And you guys, it's real. We've got to do a better job with our horses. Now, if your horses are at home and they're relaxed and, you're not up 100% on your pasture management, but your horses are happy and healthy, then that's fine. But what about all the other facilities or the backyard horse owners who are not providing what their horses need? And I'm just trying to bullet point some of this because it's a big topic and I want people to be able to grasp some things and have takeaways, but they have to be able to socialize. And that doesn't mean you just stick them out with any horse. Horses in the wild choose their friendships. Domesticated horses do not get to choose who they're with. And you've done such a great job figuring that out, watching and seeing and removing and seeing if this other horse could buddy up. But most of the time, the reason why they don't get along is because they are stressed out about food. Because they are unhappy, they are locked up all the time. They don't get to do the normal instinctive things that horses are hardwired to do. And you're giving them their basic needs, but these needs, they're basic. It's a no-brainer, but most people can't do it. Kudos.
When we bring in horse owners, and Geena can speak to this, she has more at the end than I do. We are also having to coach these new horse owners because again, we took over the facility with 9 horses and we're now at 41 and we haven't even been in business a year. That's a lot of waiting list.
And you have a waiting list. Yes, you could fill 3 more barns with 40 horses. Everybody wants to be with you.
I can tell you story after story of people that are like, I have to have my horse at your facility for these reasons. But that intake and trying to help these horse owners understand healthy horse behavior and understand that it's okay for them to have a sense of themselves and to behave a certain way. And for some reason, and I don't know where this happened, and I cannot speak for the Midwest, the East Coast, I can only speak for our area. Horses are so micromanaged. They are so worried about every little thing that the minute the horse runs around or has a voice, it's like everything is a problem. And we, Geena and I, have to set an expectation and establish, let it go. That's okay. That's healthy. That's normal. Let them figure it out. This is very healthy for this horse. It helps them to get self-esteem, self-actualization, safety. These are things nobody talks about. We meet their basic physiological needs and sometimes safety with food, water, stall, but there's so much more that goes into it that nobody talks about when they go to a boarding facility. And so we have to help owners understand, let that go. That's okay. That is perfectly healthy, normal behavior. And Geena and I are constantly having to play the voice of reason. And we know every one of our horses on our property, Geena, and I know them as if they are our very own. And we know what's acceptable and what is not. And we only get involved when aggression or an unhealthy behavior presents itself. And then we have to work together to address that with each and every horse owner.
It's beautiful. It's all over the world though. So everybody is taught to micromanage their horses because most facilities don't know anything. Okay. They're assholes and they're, they're like, we don't want the horse injured. It's a liability issue. So, and they don't care to educate themselves on natural, healthy herds. They don't care like you do. So, and I do here. So you've got that micromanaging, and then you've got people that don't care and look at how injured their horses get too. You've got the other extreme where, they'll figure it out. Well, wait a minute. They'll figure it out and they're getting the shit beat out of them, or they're or they can't eat their own food because no one's managing while they're eating, not in a stall, they're being fed out in a pasture, and there's multiple horses and nobody knows how to manage that. So the horses are all kicking each other out of their feed bowls and fighting, and then that creates tremendous anxiety. So yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how. It still perplexes me. I don't, and I know you guys understand this. I don't know where or how all of this originated. Like, where did it start? Where it was just like anybody could say anything and act like an expert, or their opinion makes them an expert. Their opinion, not their experience, their opinion. And I just, it's just disgusting, because the horse is the one that ends up suffering because of the human's ego to be right, or to look good, or not to care. And it's disgusting. I'm so glad that you guys are such amazing advocates of the horse and examples that we all can do a hell of a better job. And if we don't know, then seek the...
Yeah, anyone who thinks it can be done, we're doing it. We have 41 horses with 39 different horse owners. Every single one of them go out to pasture the same time every day with their same groups. We have all of our horses are laying down, taking naps in pasture. We had a baby born at our facility. I think, Caroline, I don't know if you know this. Within 1 week, that baby was out to pasture with 4 mares and is being raised in pasture with 4 mares and is living his very best life, learning more than we will ever teach him. He's naturally weaning himself. He's independent. He's amazing. We are doing things, and a lot of it has to do with our intake. And that's something that everyone should be aware of when you go to a new facility or when you are thinking of a facility. There are conversations that need to be had. What is your horse like? How long have you owned it? What are their behaviors? Are they socialized? Have they been out to pasture before? We work with each owner on where that horse goes, in what stall. We work on integrating that horse into pasture with the owners all present. We all take an equal responsibility in this. And we don't accept. And if we have, and Geena was just getting ready to say, I'll let her go into this, we've had owners come to us at their wit's end. My horse is deemed, aggressive. My horse is deemed the problem child. And it's like, well, what's happening? And, we bring those horses to our facility, and within a matter of 3 weeks, that owner is, are you drugging my horse? They're so calm. They're so relaxed. It's like, hello, we are providing him the ability to be free and to socialize and to be with other horses. And to do what comes natural and to figure it out instead of us meddling and getting in the way. Exactly. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Munchhausers out there. Trust me, I've met quite a few students that project or transfer a lot of their shit onto their animals, and horses included. It can get a little weird out there. You guys definitely, or you, Jamie, you need to create a plan, like something you can sell and start to go out there and monitor and help people get this type of business. This is a great business model. Great business. Well, you're a business person. You have your own business. Great business model that I think, and you and I talked about this, that you need to do something with in the new year. You need to really get out there and educate people. These horses are, oh my gosh, 24 hours out of the day, and then each horse owner that has board. And I've done everything I can to try to find statistics on how many horses are even in the state of California, how many are boarded versus or how many are at home. I can't find that information, but I know for us in California, land is hard to find. It's expensive. Yes. And there's nothing that monitors these boarding facilities and how many horses you can have at each facility. There is nothing that, oh my gosh, nobody oversees what we're doing. So if I wanted to, I could shut down all my pastures, go in a bunch of stalls and just board them up all day long and collect money for each stall, and probably find horse owners would be acceptable with that. And it's really sad because there's nothing that protects these horses and what they need. In fact, we have a boarder that came in from the Netherlands, and she was telling me about the laws that are established in the Netherlands. And she said, I'm shocked when I come to the States, California especially, that there's no law. In the Netherlands, you cannot have a horse unless you have so many acres of pasture. You have to have multiple horses. They have laws that govern these things, and we fall so short when it comes to these things. And it just shocks me that nobody oversees anything that we do.
Yeah,
and so we're left to our own devices, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, no, it shocks me too. I think your state is pretty unique in that, in a bad way. It shocked me coming to the facility before you took it over and seeing how deplorable it was. And it wasn't even as deplorable as some of the others you had mentioned. And, just the dangers, the lack of safety, just everything, and how stressed out those horses were, and just, yeah, so maybe that's something you'll get involved in then. Maybe you'll form, a committee and a law that has to get passed in your state that is, benefiting the welfare of these horses. Just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The horses get such, get pushed to the back. I don't get it.
We have a question.
Yes. I just want to, before we get to the question, I'm just going over the paper that you submitted so we can make sure we bring up everything. Like your watering systems, our water troughs are cleaned weekly. Your watering systems are clean. How many times? When I was there, the water was disgusting. And, how many places do we go where, the water is disgusting? And so the stalls are clean 7 days a week. Absolutely. I am a clean freak myself. And everybody that comes to me, like this past week, the girls were like, you have no flies. Why have no flies? Because we're so clean. But let me tell you, one of the main reasons, we also don't have shavings in our stalls. Our stalls in my barns are treated like run-ins so that horses can form their friends, and they and their friends can use the stalls together. They eat together in the stalls. They stay out of the rain together. They stay in front of the fans together. So it's really cool to see how they, like you're doing, form their friendships. They get to share a stall. There's no shavings. There's mats, of course, because they're never locked in the stall, and they don't sleep in the stall. They sleep outside in the sand. And so therefore, when you have shavings, it's going to trap the urine and it's going to attract the flies. It's not really about the manure as much as it is about the urine. And so that's why, you guys, when you get fly predators, which I don't believe they work, I do not, and I've used them off and on for years. I don't use them now, but they insist that you put the fly predators in what? Urine. Open the bag up when it's ready, when they've hatched. And you're supposed to lay the hatchlings in moisture. So everybody thinks flies are attracted to the manure. Well, they are, but it's the urine that creates all these bugs. So we don't, it's pretty cool when you try to accommodate your situation to what the horse needs, not what you need to make it easy for you. And I know that it's a little bit more maintenance. But I'm like, you know what? Figure it out. Then you don't deserve to have a horse. We shouldn't have all these animals. Look at all these animals that have no homes.
Stalls and shavings and all that is a human thing. It's not a horse thing. They're very happy. We even put them out in pasture when it's windy and if it's sprinkling. We're not like, oh, bring the horses in. They're fine. Let them figure it out. It builds a strong, healthy horse. They need to be out in the elements. I don't know why we baby them the way that we do, but
well, exactly. I think for two reasons. I think it's just us, what we think is best for them, but also the expense. A lot of horses in windy weather, they're nuts, they're not self-regulated. So when I took over this farm, some of my neighbors could not get over when we bought this farm, how, obviously calm my horses were. You've got, neighbors shooting their guns and it's all good. I love all that. You have cows in the back that can scare the heck out of horses if they're not used to them. You've got gunfire going off. You've got, it's pretty rednecky and out in the country here. And the previous owner's horses were nuts. They were running through fences. I mean, everything triggered them and spooked them. So, there is that truth, for the lack of a better word. There are a lot of horses out there that can't handle stimulation, and that's not normal. It's like if you keep them, what's that saying? I'm really bad with sayings, like in a glass house. Like if you keep a horse always protected and, oh, don't scare them and don't do this and don't do that, they're never going to learn how to cope or adapt or deal with anything. So I think it's a combination of what we feel is right for the horse, which isn't necessarily always best for the horse. And then there's this, what do we do? I don't know how to change it. And I'm here to say, you guys, more than 75% of your personal horses, whether they're home or in a boarding facility, are, you know, crazy and screwed up because of their environment. I'm not saying that it's not previous training or bad training or handling and all the above, but the environment just, they can't feel safe. They don't know where to go to feel safe.
I know that's because, do you remember I got my little halflinger Emma that I rescued? And even CJ.
Yes.
I've seen what having them in facilities and trying to work with them through your method, the results that I've achieved with just changing their environment. Emma, when I took her from, when I first got her, I had to take her to another boarding facility in another area.
Yep.
It was,
I remember.
The minute I trailered her to my facility, my private place where I have CJ and the two others, within 30 days, everything changed. She had the ability to move around, explore. We got to do a lot of liberty work together. She got to learn through them and their energy and the environment. And then
She felt safe.
Easy. She felt very safe. And it's like, wait a minute, we're missing this in, you know, what we're trying to accomplish with our horses. And we have the best of intentions when we arrive to them, to be calm and to work with them. But that 1 hour or that 2 hours cannot outdo or undo all that other time when they're housed next to a horse that's aggressive, when they're not let out of their stalls, when they're hungry. It's more than we can handle, and that you can't fix that unless we do a better job when we go to these facilities. You know, and I see it more often than not, are more concerned with what's in it for the human than the horse.
Yes.
Is there a covered arena? How pretty are the tack rooms?
I know.
Do you have a dressage court? They want to see all these things that cater to them, but nobody's asking, how are your horses socialized? What type of food do you feed? How often are you feeding? What does the watering systems look like? The questions that should be asked are not being asked for the horse. They're being asked for the human. Geena can speak to this all day long because this is what she does. We don't offer those things because we're going to take care of your horse. We have pasture, we have 3 times a day feeding, we have healthy, good quality food. Your horses are going to be fed well, full, socialized, happy.
And nobody's stressed. How about this? Nobody's stressed though. Yes.
Stressed.
You don't have the stress.
In this. No.
Yes.
So we,
and that's key.
Podcast, need to do a better job with what we're looking for when we go to these environments. I don't want to see the pretty arena that's covered and these beautiful box stalls that are 12 by 12 or 12 by 24 filled with shavings to the brim, and there's nowhere for the horses to go. It's like, wait a minute.
I know.
Where's my horse go to be a horse? That's the facility I want to find. I want to find the green pasture where my horse can go out and socialize. I want structure. I want consistency for my horse.
Routine, and I want absolutely
routine. I want all these things that's going to set the foundation for my horse to be comfortable, calm, healthy. And then when I arrive, I get to work with my horse and they're not stressed. And I think
correct.
In the past that are, you know, lunging for food and they're getting yanked by their faces, and the horse is hungry. Feed the horse. What are we doing? And it's just crazy. And then it just adds to this animosity and this stress and this micromanagement of horses, and it just goes on. And it's really sad and very sickening.
It is.
So
it is. I'm so glad we're talking about this. Yeah, no, this is it's huge. I mean, our podcast may not have a lot of live people right now, but we will pick up. We could get 300 in a week that will listen to this. Trust me, this is such an important topic. Everybody is concerned about this. And I do know, and I have heard, there are people out there that do think like this. I think there's not enough of them. And the hardest part is your horses, not giving them just one type of hay. We've got to come up with, we have to figure out what that particular horse needs, as you mentioned, for its age, its activity level. The teeth are a big issue. Ulcers are a big issue, which can come and go just as quickly as they can come, they can go away too. And then there's also the being able to bond. Oh my gosh, horses get so bored. They have to go out and play with each other and groom each other. It's like putting us in isolation. I call stalls prison cells when they're locked in. I don't care how beautiful they are. And like you said, if they have 3 feet of shavings, because it makes us feel all good. And it's like, no, this is, and then what I'm scared to let my horse out. I hear this all the time because my horse doesn't, he's going to run through the fence, and then take him out of that facility, then take him out of the environment. Every horse that's ever come to me for retraining, they come from all different places, right? Obviously. And as soon as they get here, they change immediately because they are amongst a herd of horses that is so chill and happy, not stressed out. There's routine, there's constant engagement, and bond, the ability to bond. And most of the horses don't know how to do this. Most of the horses that come can't even be turned out with my horses right away because they have no idea how to socialize. They have no idea. And we don't talk about this enough. There's not enough education. It blows my mind. All right, you guys.
We're not afraid of those horses. We bring those horses in.
Yes, you do.
For Geena and I, when we meet these people, is, people will come to us with a problem horse, and I even hate to say that word because
I know
not even the horse's fault. I don't like when that is even discussed. It's what is going on in this horse's environment and what has happened in their past that is causing them to feel this way. If we find that we have horse owners and, we bring in people that are at their wits' end, they don't know what to do. Their horse has been labeled disobedient, disrespectful, aggressive, dangerous. That horse owner has such a desire and wants to do the right thing for that horse. Those are the people we want to bring in because we're not afraid to help those horses. But the willingness, the ability to, and the mental ability for the owner to accept, in order for this to happen, you have to accept that these things are going to happen. We want like-minded individuals, and guess what? Your horse is going to come in from pasture with a bite mark or maybe a scratch or maybe a scrape. This happens. This is healthy, normal behavior, and every horse has the right to defend their space. A horse has to earn their right into the group, and they have the right to earn self-respect within the group. It teaches them self-esteem. They need these things, and we refuse to allow it to happen in the boarding facility type environment because nobody wants to be responsible. It's an easy way out, and it's really sad. And Geena and my full-time job is our pasture groups, and constantly as we're bringing in new horses and what pasture groups they go in and assessing behaviors, and that is a full-time job for us. And we do it with passion. We're happy to do it because that's everything.
It is. It is. I love it. I love it. We'll get to the question. I want to give a little story with the Mustang Lando that's been here with me, since February. He's not mine. He's owned by someone else, a student of ours. And long story short, she hasn't, she left and she wasn't here for the summer and she hasn't been back. And he's started, he became very confident, comfortable out in the herd. And with that newfound confidence, he started getting a little aggressive. So with food and a little too big for his britches. And he started mounting one of the mares, Lita, in heat. But because, I take care of everything from 1 o'clock on here, my staff is only here 8 till 1. And then I'm here because I want to be here. It's important. Nobody's going to, right now, I don't have a barn manager. I'm the barn manager. Well, I do. I've got Clarissa, but I'm the barn manager, you guys. My job is to assess behavior too, obviously, and to watch. And my office is down in my main barn. And I take a lot of breaks so I can see my horses and chill with them and like you, observe and watch. And so I started seeing this little shit, Lando, the little cute shit Mustang. And I'm like, oh, hell no. So I go out there and interrupt the behavior. It does not take long, but you have to be consistent and you have to know what you're doing and you have to do it the right way. I don't go out there angry and aggressive, but I go out there assertive like a lead horse and I communicate with him. And it is a teaching moment. It's a moment to interrupt his behavior and a moment to show him a better way. and damn if he doesn't get it. It wasn't about training. You can't train a horse not to mount. You can't train a horse not to be aggressive around food. It wasn't about him being hungry. This was in the summer. He had plenty to eat. In my situation, it had nothing to do with being hungry. It had to do with his confidence level. But in that, like I said, if you guys learn, if people just take the time to learn these things, and that's, the Mastery membership obviously teaches all of this. If just take the time to learn how to communicate to your horse and teach your horse a better way. This is the language of equus. This is what a really healthy, well socialized, wild band of horses, mares do. They all work together as a community to help raise the young and show them what's appropriate behavior, what works for the herd as a whole and what doesn't. And it's just amazing. So that little guy got his shit checked for a few weeks. I mean, I was out like every hour. and I keep them all together so I can feed them. And then I turn them out to the big 10-acre field at night. So, they're around the barn, in and out of the stalls from 8 to 1. They get 2 feedings, you guys, from 8 to 1 a.m. and lunch, and hay, and they're around, they're all together. But then I move them out to the training field so I can watch their weight, because I don't want them eating too much grass, or in the winter, I can feed them. And then at night, they go out to the big field, the 10-acre field. But I have 2 big fields, so I have 2 different big herds. But anyway, it's important. It's just, everything is so cohesive and harmonious. And so I don't know how you guys are doing things. I would imagine similarly, because you follow the program so well, that when you do see a horse that's new and having a hard time with its new herd and socializing, I know you're on it, and how much have you adopted from me? Like, I'm in there interrupting that behavior, holding the space, redirecting it, and helping as a lead horse, like the lead horse would do in the wild, manage that space for a little while. I'll go out there. I love it. And I get to spend time with everybody while I manage the situation until it calms down. Then I'll walk away, but I'll keep my eye on it. I'll keep my eye on it, like a mama horse would.
We do the same thing. We have groups that are all mares, and we have groups that are all geldings. We try to place them in order of age and activity level. So we have a group of 6 and 5 and 8-year-olds that are very rambunctious and like to play. We have all groups of mares that have the baby, and they're very happy, and they raise that baby together. Yeah. And then we have mixed groups of mares and geldings. And so it allows us flexibility when new horses come in. If, let's say, we have a gelding that doesn't do well or does not know how to socialize well with mares, we try to place them in the appropriate area.
Yes, I love it.
And Geena does, actually, I'll let her speak to that, because she does more of the introductions when new horses come in, how they're introduced. It's critical that we make this introduction, this onboarding that we call it, when a new horse comes in, how it's communicated to the horse owners. I've never understood, you come to the barn and there's a new horse next to your horse and you know nothing about it. So I'll let Geena talk about how we bring in and onboard new horse owner or horses and owners, and then how we introduce the pasture groups, because we want everyone to be set up for success, and how we kind of profile that situation. So
awesome.
So yeah, when new horses are brought in, everybody's aware, like the stall that they're going in, the boarders next to them, everybody's communicated with, and they have the option to be there and make sure that introduction goes well.
Here, speak up, get a little closer, hon. Thank you.
So all the boarders know when a new horse comes in next to them in that stall, so they can all be there and make sure that introduction goes well. And same thing with the pasture groups. We try and introduce them in like adjacent pastures, so they have the opportunity to meet over the fence and make sure that introduction goes well. And if that all goes well, we can put them out in the same pasture together. Again, all boarders, the owners all have the opportunity to be there and make sure that goes well. And like you said, we're monitoring very closely the behaviors that they're exhibiting.
You have to.
Yeah,
you have to. That's what people don't get. You've got to have somebody who's willing.
They might raise their leg, they might pin their ears. We all give them the opportunity to established.
So let's talk about that for a minute, though. Hold on. Because a lot of people, and I know we talked about this, Jamie, when in the beginning too, people, it's in the 4th course of the Mastery Membership program too. How do you introduce horses and what you're looking for? And those 2 areas are absolute. I'll put them stall by stall. And even if they hate each other for 2 weeks, it'll work. It'll end up working out. Trust me. And also over the fence, but a lot of people get worried. This is that the myths or the dogma. Oh, they pinned their ears and they squealed and they struck the ground. And I'm like, yeah, usually that means they're pretty excited about each other. I mean, they're expressing themselves. So all of those physical behaviors are so acceptable when you're introducing horses. The dividing line of when you should not allow them together is when you see them attacking each other, going after each other with the biting or trying to kick. Now, kicking to claim your space is one thing, but running another horse down or charging the fence and trying to bite or double barrel kicking, all of those are extreme aggressive behaviors. You do not want to put that horse with the other horse. But the other things get people really upset and excited, like, oh my gosh, they're screaming at each other, they're squealing, they're nipping, they pin their ears. And I'm like, as long as they're not biting, charging, or double barrel kicking when the other horse can't get out of the way. Like I've seen horses corner horses and beat the shit out of them, corner them and tear them apart. More times than I'd like to remember.
At the facility before I took it over, that happened to CJ with another mare. She literally pinned her in the corner, and CJ's only choice was to jump the fence and run back to her stall. And I'm thinking, what the hell is happening here? It's just crazy. And what's really sad is that a lot of horse owners, they even get stressed if their horse is running around feeling themselves and happy because they're let loose. They've been taught that my horse is tearing up the pasture. My horse is out of control. And it's like,
he's going to hurt himself.
What are we talking about? And so Geena and I have a responsibility. We set the tone. We're there. We're relaxed. We're calm. And because we took over the facility with 9 horses and we were able to build, we outnumbered them. We have the foundation there. And so we're able to talk them off, like, relax.
We're having to coach the boarders. It's okay when they're exhibiting these behaviors. It's okay.
Good.
Establishing their hierarchy. They're learning how to be social. And it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, and your horse doesn't know how to follow social cues. Your horse is a little bit of a widget and they're excited and they don't understand. You're going to have to let them
figure it out.
These other horses. And so you have to be okay with these things. And we find that if a boarder just cannot mentally wrap their head around it, then unfortunately they have to find a facility that offers a larger stall with larger space. We're not the place, because we do not, I want to make this clear, we do not allow horses to stay stalled. In fact, we offer turnout to our horses at an additional cost. The pastures are free. If you want to turn your horse in and out during their time with their group and you do it, there's no additional charge. You should not have to pay for your horse to go out to grass. If you want us to handle your horse, we will take them in and out during their time at an additional charge, and it's $30 a month, $1 a day.
Oh,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Amount for what we offer. And that horse, if you do your own turnout, and it's in my contract, if you, Caroline, board your horse with me and you're doing your own turnout and you're not showing up because you're just too busy, by 2 days of your horse being in its stall, we turn the horse out and we charge you for it on your next month's boarding. And it's in the contract and you agree to it. You take that responsibility. A condition of being here is your horse goes out like everybody else's. We don't pick and choose. Everyone is on the same program. And if you cannot accept that, then you will not make it here. And I hate to say it that way, but this is the culture that we insist upon.
Yes.
Every horse, it's a culture. We're a family. Our horses are a family. It's the same.
I love it.
We have 41 horses and we currently count 33. And when we turn a horse in and out, and it goes back into that feeling of safety and security for these horses, we don't correct and train and yank and yell at the horse. If something is upsetting that horse, we stay calm. We support them through it. Our job is to get them safely and comfortably in and out of pasture. In fact, the horses, because they're on such a routine, they actually present themselves at the gates in order of hierarchy. The lead mare always comes to the gate first, And then the second,
Yes.
it's interesting, they know their time, they're showing up, they're in line, they're ready to come in. And we even have horses that have the ability to walk from pasture. The baby and the mom, in fact, is one of them, where they go through one pasture to another to get to their stall, and we don't even have to use lead ropes and halters.
I love it.
I
love it.
Mama walks in with the baby, the next one follows, the next one follows, and then we put them in their stalls from wherever that point is. They just know, they're so smart.
They do.
We don't give
They
them
do.
credit because we micromanage everything they do.
Yes.
And so they show us, and we have nothing to prove. We'll take it the way they present it. If we have a horse that has an issue and it's an incident, we will let the owner know, but we don't correct, we don't yank at their face, we're not yelling at them, we stay calm. If after a second time, then we let the owner know and we ask to help us through it. And by the third time, we tell them we can no longer offer this service to you until you work it through with your horse. Here's how we suggest you do that. We're not there to, you will never see Geena or I or any member of our team yelling, yanking, pulling at. That is horrific. What is upsetting that horse? Why is this happening? What's the trigger? How do we fix this with the horse?
Yep.
It's
Calm. Yes. Calm, collected. Yes. I love it. I love it.
And we just don't, if it happens down in pasture, we go out, we correct it, but we all remain very calm. We are not there to punish the horse. We're there to understand and try to help fix whatever's happening. We've had an issue, and I'll let you talk about, you know, when we introduce horses to pasture groups, they might not be a good fit, and it's not even aggression. There's they're pacing the gate. They seem very, very upset.
Yes.
Find them a new group.
Yes. Because horses are so communicative. You guys, if we are just learn to slow down and pay attention and learn what all of this means. Like you just said, if you see a horse pacing the gate and this is your facility though, I know a lot of facilities horses pace for other reasons because they're not being fed what they need. You know, they do have buddy anxiety, but so pacing is stress. So like you said, what's the trigger? And obviously the horses are being fed plenty, you know, it's a very calm and harmonious environment. So you're doing a process of elimination, which makes for a great problem solver, a great diagnostician, as I always say. Look for the patterns. So then you figure out, wow, this horse, it's really not socializing. It's not able to be calm in that herd and eat and relax. So let's take it out. That would be the first thing I would do is let's take it out of the herd, go see where it fits, if it changes, if that behavior changes somewhere else. And if it doesn't, then there's something else going on. But yeah, yes.
Change the group and that horse is fine. They just weren't happy in that environment or with that group. There's an energy that goes on there with horses that we don't understand.
It's hard to hear you.
Oh,
sorry. It's hard to hear you. I know.
I'm sorry. I keep sitting back. But horses, when we introduce them to the group, they're sitting in that energy that they're not feeling. And when we place them with someone else, it all goes away. There's attention to those things. We don't want any horse. You can go out to our facility at any time during the day or night, and you will see our pasture groups calm, grazing together. They mutually groom one another. They're laying down in shifts. We walk out to the facility and half of our horses are asleep out in pasture. That to me is success.
Yes, it is.
Grooming one another. We've had horses come to us that, oh, we never turn this horse out with other horses. He's too aggressive, and he's living with 3 mares that would they keep him perfectly in check. And they allow these things to happen, and we stay out of it to some degree. Geena and I stay out of it. We only get involved when there is an aggressive type behavior, and that's happened to us on a few occasions. But our job is to know before that even happens. And we find what's interesting, and Caroline, you might know more about this. Mare groups are pretty honest, and we know right away. Geldings, sometimes those issues don't occur until a week or 2 later. Something will pop up that we didn't see or that will transpire between the gelding group. But with mares, it's usually pretty simple. They exchange breath, they accept one another, and they're done. They form their groups, and it's over. Geldings are a little more tricky for us.
Yeah, no, well, that's the role of the mare. She's a mama. So that's why you have a band of mares as a community that in the wild that raises the young. And that's why when we're breeding, if you do it correctly, you want a bunch of brood mares with a bunch of babies so they all can, help monitor the babies and raise them. Geldings. So so what we do with geldings is we neuter them, we geld them. And if you're around stallions, stallions are aggressive because of the testosterone, and aggressive because of their instinct to fight for a mare and to claim their own band of mares, a herd. But I have personally I rescued, and I ended up gelding. But when I rescued the 2 wild stallions, they got along fine. And I had to geld them because I had to rehabilitate them, and obviously I sold them. But the point I'm making is when you take away, the hormones are part of a horse's natural instincts, the hormones, and stallions are great. I don't want to say they're great at, they're not as good as the mares, obviously, but it's just like a mom and a dad. It's just like a mother and a father. And, when you have one stallion that is responsible for a band of mares, a herd of mares, he is going to mate usually for life with one mare. That will be his mate for life. And then all the other females are his offspring. Or they could be the mare's siblings that they bring back to the community. They know instinctively not to interbreed, so that's why you'll get the rogue stallion on the outside trying to steal a mare. She might go off with that rogue stallion and get impregnated and then come back to the community of mares because she wants to raise her family. So stallions can have a very serious role in the socialization. But when we geld horses, we take a lot away from our geldings, our male horses. We take a lot away from them hormonally that instinctively tells them certain things. I want to say too, this is a complicated thing to talk about because I have a lot of geldings of my own, and every one of my geldings has been protective of me and possessive and just very protective. And I see that with Janine, who keeps her 2 horses here with me, that's been with me for 8 years. I see that with her mare and her gelding. It's so like a dog. I think horses are way more smarter than dogs, but horses have that ability because family is so important to them, relationships, that they can share that with us and feel that way with us. But you have to have that intimacy. You guys, they're not your horses. You're just seeing them from a different perspective. And I don't know, how bonded they are with their human, but geldings can be very surprising. Very protective and very possessive, very possessive. Very possessive. I just think you've got to bring that out. It's that bond more than anything. We're stallions right off the bat, but it's more instinctive and on a hormonal basis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but mares, oh my, yeah, they're mamas. Watch out. Don't mess with a mare.
No, they are.
She'll put you in your place.
Geena has
I love it.
Geena has mares at the facility, and her 2 are with the mom that just had a baby. And we made sure when she got to the facility, our first goal was to introduce her to a herd before the baby was born, because we knew the minute that baby was born, he needed to be out moving around and socializing. So
excellent.
Geena, making sure that we had an established group for her. And that gelding, that little boy, is already along the fence line playing with other geldings, and mom is letting him kind of roam around and explore. And there'll be times we'll look out to pasture, and he's in his stall eating, and mom's still out to pasture, and he's 3 months old.
Oh, that's unheard of.
Oh, one day
that's
we brought them from pasture.
He is.
He's so balanced. There was a day when we brought all the group in from pasture, and we opened the gate, and mom came in, and she was in the stall eating, and all the others were gone. He's still asleep in pasture, and we're like, hey, come on, wake up. And he just wakes up, and he's like, oh, and then he just walks into his stall with his mom from pasture to another pasture into it. And it's like, because he has this comfortable life, and he's able to naturally explore.
Yes.
And these mares that are, and I'll let Geena tell the story, but her mare protects that horse as if it's her very own.
He's trying to fight the mom. Even mom has kind of gone off on her own. She's like, I'm done. And my mares have turned into quite mamas.
That's what they do though.
Herd him around and protect
The whole
him.
herd, the whole community will pitch in. It's beautiful. I love it. That's a really healthy socialized herd.
He was on the fence line and a new building was a little bylaw, a little holding area where horses are brought in a sense.
Oh, hold on. We keep losing you. I think it's your internet, honestly, because you're garbled a little bit. Say that again, hon.
Dry lot where we bring in new horses and we're able to socialize them to the four pastures. So we have like a holding area where horses that come in are able to still go out. And this new gelding was brought in and he was up with the baby sniffing noses, and the baby, did his little Fleming thing or his little, submissive thing.
Yes.
And mom didn't even care. Her mare went and kind of scooped him around, ran him to the corner, and then all the mares surrounded him because there was a new gelding. Nothing aggressive, but they all pitch in and they take care of this baby together.
I love it.
On another note, I'm gonna let Geena just quickly talk about when new horses come in before they're introduced to their pasture groups, how we transition them in and how we give them pasture time outside of the pasture turnout, because we don't want new horses coming in and they're just immediately stalled up. We still give them time to transition. So I'll let Geena talk about the transition.
Okay.
Quickly. You mean it's a lot for a horse to come into our facility and they've never been socialized, especially in our area. That's why they're coming in, is because they want their horse to go out and be in a herd and eat grass. So it can be a lot for them to come in and like get used to this new environment and get settled. So we give them a couple weeks just to get used to the new facility and kind of get adjusted to this environment and their new stallmates. So what we allow them to do is to go out in the morning before our morning group. So they have an hour from like 6 a.m. to like 8:30 for them to go out to pasture and get used to eating grass and kind of get their wiggles out and get used to being able to move. And then we allow them all as well to go out after our evening group comes in, so they can go out again from like 7 to 8:30 p.m. And get that same time. So they have this kind of adjustment period because it can be a lot for them to be in this new environment and get used to all these things before they get introduced to a herd and have to learn how to socialize and do all of those things.
Oh, I love it. That's excellent. You guys that's just amazing. I think we've got a question or two.
One. Is there, her name is Christine.
Christine. Hi, Christine.
Is there a way to help a horse from getting so worried when their stallmate gets taken out?
Yeah, that's a big one. So Christine's question is, and you guys I'll let you guys speak up first. I think you might have heard that. What do you do when your horse's stallmate's taken out and your horse starts acting buddy sour? So do you guys does that happen where you're at right now? If you're taking all these horses out that belong in the same herd, are you taking them all out together, or are you taking one out at a time? Even if you took one out at a time, they know the routine. So I'm sure they wouldn't get stressed out because they know they're going.
We try and avoid leaving horses behind, like you talked about earlier. So we have 2 barns. We try and avoid putting horses out faster and having one left behind, but we do have cases where like when we got new horses coming in and all of a sudden all their friends are leaving them. Eventually they realize that in a few hours they're coming back, and they kind of settle down about that. I don't know, it's the routine, and they know what to expect. I think that gives them confidence, and that really helps.
Well, that's one aspect. You're right. I think the biggest aspect, kudos to you guys, is that you have such a safe environment. It's such a relaxed environment. So there's so many things working in your facility that prove to the new horse or the anxious horse. And whereas Christine, I don't know your environment, we need a lot more information than that. Is this your personal home and farm, and there's just 2 horses at your farm, or 4 horses at your farm, or is this a boarding facility? What's the stress level like there? What type of barn facility is it? And I mean stress. I mean, it's unbelievable how much that creates and affects and influences our horses. So Christine, you can always email me privately, directly, and ask, I need more information though. I need to know, or if we can answer it before we get ready to wrap this up in a few minutes. where is your horse being boarded? Because that makes all the difference.
Yeah, that horse, if their only form of socialization and bonding is that horse next to them, and then that horse is taken. Our horses understand quickly that they also have another group, and we try, to not only keep horses, like let's say we have a back barn with, 15 horses, and then we have a front barn with another 24. We try to make sure that not one horse is left behind, but that they're all well adjusted and in other groups. Not so dependent on that one horse. All of our stalls are open. We do not have closed stalls. Every horse can touch and groom each other from front to back. We have, I think, only one horse that shows any type of food aggression, and that would be Aline. But she's best friends with her neighbors. But once food time comes, she's not aggressive or mean, but she just gets very excited. But all the stalls are open. They see each other. We don't close off. The answer is not.
That's a big deal too.
The answer is the opposite, people. It's feed them better, let them out to socialize, give them the ability to bond and socialize and feel comfortable, safe, and happy. You don't have to stop them and block them. And so our horses quickly realize it's a much bigger picture, that even though that one horse is leaving, they have other horses, they're a family, they're a group, and they end up going out with their group, and they know every day they get those social needs met later. And so the new horse, it usually takes them about a week to adjust, and in those particular cases, those horses will try to feed 4 times a day. We don't give them more food, we just take their amount and we break it up more.
Yeah, that's excellent.
To create these little holding areas or lots they can go out to where they can, all of this movement and change is more than their minds can handle when they're used to always being stalled up. So when horses come into a facility and horses are moving and they're out to pasture, they're not understanding that movement, and then they quickly realize it, and once they fall into it, it all just goes away. It really just goes away.
Yeah, and that's, unfortunately, there are some extreme cases. Buddy sour is a big deal. There are some, you guys are touching on some of the most critical pieces to helping horses feel safe and secure and not have these buddy sour or displaced anxieties. Yet there are these extreme cases, extreme triggers, extreme trauma. Most of the time buddy sours because the horses are never separated and they come to rely on each other instead of relying on all these other help. Like the horses at your barn have many things to rely on, so it makes them more balanced. And so when one thing's taken away, it doesn't upset the balance. But a lot of time, these buddy sour horses, the only thing they have that makes them feel safe is this other horse. Or they latch on to that horse because they're so insecure. This horse is insecure. It's like birds of a feather flock together. You have to be really careful. I'm going to give you guys another example of my personal horse, Legend, who was the most buddy sour horse I've ever dealt with. And he's 29 this year. And Legend can still get buddy sour when I separate him from, I call it his wife, Sundance. Now they've been together for 15, 18 years now. I've lost track, but I'm also not working with either one of them, but they're with me throughout the day, all the time. And I noticed that for Legend, most of the buddy sour is he doesn't want to be left out. Like I can take her away and he's like screaming, what the hell's going on? But if I take him away, he's fine. So you have to look at that complexity too. Can you take your horse away from its buddy and your horse is fine? Or is it just when you take the buddy away, and then where's your horse left? So there's always variables to think about. It's never that easy. But the biggest factor with this podcast today is look at how much you can change. How much of your horse's anxiety and lack of focus in training and inability to focus in training, you can cure so much of that just by producing a really healthy, stable environment. Stable, not stable. Me and my puns. Well, thank you. Thank you, you guys. We've got to wrap it up. We've been for about an hour and 20 minutes. We could go on and go on, but I think this is excellent. I'm so excited to have a podcast on this topic, and it'll keep circulating out there. So I'll send you an email, Jamie, believe me, we'll collect a lot of hits on this one, a lot of downloads. Anything else, ladies, you'd like to wrap up with?
To to say, just to follow up with you, the takeaway message here for everyone listening, just please be very, very conscientious of what it is you're doing when you go to these facilities and where your horse is, asking all the right questions, and really insisting upon an environment where your horse is allowed the freedom to be a horse, to socialize, fed well. We should start asking better questions and really insist on better environments for our equine partners, because they do so much for us and we expect so much from them, yet we are failing to meet their needs when it comes to socialization, self-actualization, self-esteem. And these are all the critical components of a horse that you want in order to work with them, train them, and have them in an open learning state of mind. And so I think if we could just, refocus instead of the expensive tack and all the gimmicks and the gadgets and all these things that we're looking for, let's just go back to the basics and demand and expect more from where we are putting our horses and in the environments that are influencing them when we're not around.
That's a great point. I'll add that speaks to a mindset that's more traditional, but I'm going to also separate the audience because the people that are going to be listening to our podcast are of like mind. And I know that they feel powerless in these situations. They're one of no like mind in their barn. They're a student of mine, so they feel very isolated. And I keep telling them, you guys have got to band together. At least if the barn can agree on better welfare for the horse as a whole, they don't have to agree on the mastering my method of training. But I want, for my students, people that are interested in of like mind, you don't have to be a student of mine, but because I know that you can feel very lonely in that arena, so to speak. But if you guys can meet together as a group in your barn and present, a better plan of action, that's how you can not be so powerless. And if no one else is interested, then I tell my students all the time, you're going to have to move, figure it out. Well, my horse is only 20 miles away and the next best place is an hour. Well, tough shit. I've been there and done that. And I know it's hard.
Take over our facility, just take it over.
Yeah. I'm like, why do we have horses though? It's like, it comes down to, is it just to feed your ego to make you happy? But how happy is your horse? How happy is your frickin' horse? Yeah. I am beyond the moon when I know how happy and safe and comfortable my horses feel. When all those things like you guys are talking about, I just want to have my sippy cup of coffee or wine and just watch it. Just makes me feel so freaking good when they feel good. But how many of us are into horses for some of the wrong reasons? Why do you have a horse? For your own ego, for your own need. That's what really pisses me off. And then they live a miserable life to suit our needs and wants. So that's how I'm going to end this one.
I'm sorry.
Piss off a bunch of people.
To add what I said.
Go ahead. Add. Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that you'd be surprised the improvement in the relationship between the owner.
The what, hon? I couldn't hear you.
You'd be surprised to see the relationship that improves when you give them what they need, when you give them friends to socialize with, when you give them food so they're not starving and they're getting the nutrition they need. You'd be surprised how much happier you can be as well with them when you see your horse is happy.
Great point, Geena. Thank you for that. Absolutely, because the horse is open. They're more, they're not worried and preoccupied. They're there with you. So they're seeking that connection with you too. That's a great point. Thank you for that. Thanks. Come on, people, step up.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, anytime, you guys, anytime. we can talk
the facility soon.
I'd love that for next year. But seriously, anytime, we could take one aspect and expand on it. So you guys just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye, everybody.